Hi, you're watching Reddit Confessions. If you've ever seen someone unravel in public, not from pain but from pure guilt, then maybe you'll understand what I saw that night. The moment I stepped onto that rooftop, I knew something would snap. It wasn't a dramatic entrance, no spotlight, no dramatic music, just me, in a wrinkled navy button-up, holding a glass of tonic water, standing at the edge of her new world. She didn't see me at first. She was too busy glowing, smiling, thanking board members, casually brushing shoulders with the same executives she used to trash in whispers at night. Her laughter was louder than the music, not fake, not forced, but the kind of laughter that dares the world to think she's untouchable. And then, her eyes flicked to the corner of the room, where I was standing. Her face dropped like a mirror hitting concrete. The wine glass slipped from her fingers before she could process that I was real. I hadn't sent a warning. I hadn't RSVP'd. I wasn't on the guest list, but I was there. And that alone was enough to turn her into a breathing panic attack in front of 75 stunned guests and a table of junior analysts who had no idea what they were watching. She whispered something to the woman next to her and stumbled backward. I could see her lips tremble. Her hand gripped the back of a chair as if the floor had turned to water. People stared. Phones froze midair. The room buzzed. That's when I finally walked forward. 3 steps. That's all it took. "Don't worry," I said, loud enough for her to hear, but quiet enough to make everyone lean in. "You're not hallucinating." She blinked. Once, twice, and then came the tears. Ugly, unfiltered, gasping sobs that made her mascara bleed down her face. Someone whispered, "Who is that guy?" Someone else said, "Did he just crash the party?" But I didn't speak again, because the damage was already done, and none of them knew the full story. How this woman once demolished a life she promised to protect. How she traded truth for convenience. How she painted over our marriage like it was a temporary wall color she got tired of. They didn't know the real Celia, but they were about to, because this wasn't just revenge, it was her reckoning. And it started with my silence. People always assume the loudest moments are the ones that leave scars. But that night, the loudest thing wasn't the music or the crowd or even the sound of the glass shattering at her feet. It was the silence after I said one word. "Remember?" I didn't shout. I didn't curse. I didn't raise my hand or point or call her a liar in front of her colleagues. I just looked her dead in the eyes, tilted my head slightly, and asked a question she never thought I'd get the chance to ask. The room was a mess of confusion. People were murmuring, glancing at each other, trying to figure out what scene they had just walked into. Celia, the flawless strategist, the woman who'd built her entire brand on being composed, was gripping the edge of a serving table like gravity had changed its rules. Her breathing turned erratic. Her lipstick smudged as she mouthed my name without saying it, and then she whispered, "No, no, no, no," like she was casting a spell that might make me vanish again. But I didn't vanish this time. I stood right there, in her new kingdom, surrounded by people who thought they knew her. I didn't need to raise my voice to tell the truth. She was already unraveling on her own. She clutched her wrist, eyes wild, face ghost white under the golden lighting. And I realized something as I watched her fall apart. Guilt doesn't need witnesses to grow, but shame does. That's when one of her colleagues, a young guy with a haircut too expensive for his title, stepped between us. "Sir, I think you should leave," he said, like he was protecting royalty. I didn't even acknowledge him. My eyes never left hers. "I'm not here to ruin your night, Celia," I said calmly. "That happened 3 years ago. You did that part yourself." She let out this tiny noise, like something between a choke and a sob. The kind of sound people make when they realize the past isn't buried. It's just been waiting underground, patient, growing louder. And then she did something no one expected. She turned and ran. Right past the champagne fountain, past the stunned faces, through the long velvet curtain that led to the private lounge, where her secrets used to live, and I followed. Not to humiliate her, not for revenge, but because I still needed answers, and she still owed them. The lounge was colder than I remembered. Maybe it was the air conditioning, or maybe it was just her. She stood near the wall-length window, back turned, arms wrapped around herself like she was trying to hold her body together. I stepped inside and closed the door behind me. The bass from the rooftop party thumped faintly through the floor, Like a heartbeat we were both ignoring. For a few long seconds, she didn't move. I could see her reflection in the window, her mouth opening and closing like she was rehearsing what to say. Celia, who used to pitch to billion-dollar clients without blinking, couldn't figure out how to speak to me. I waited. I wasn't going to hand her a lifeline, not after everything. Finally, her voice broke the stillness. "How did you find me?" she asked, quiet but sharp, like she still wanted control of the conversation. I didn't answer. I walked to the leather bench in the center of the room and sat down, slow and deliberate. She turned toward me then, eyes red, mascara clinging to her lashes like regret. "Dean," she whispered, like my name was some ghost she wasn't ready to believe in. "You shouldn't be here." I let out a dry laugh. "And yet, here I am. Kinda like how your affair just showed up in our marriage one night." Her face twisted. "That was years ago." "3," I said. "To the day." She flinched. Good. I wanted her to remember. Not just the affair, but how she ended it. How she slid a key across the counter and said she needed to reclaim her identity. Like I'd stolen something from her by loving her too much. "I didn't know how to face you," she said suddenly, stepping closer. "I didn't think you'd ever want to see me again." "I didn't," I admitted. "But you don't always get what you want, right?" She looked down. Silence swelled again, awkward and jagged. Then I reached into my pocket, her eyes narrowed. "What is that?" I held up a small, folded note, worn at the edges, creased 100 times. I'd kept it for reasons I still don't understand. Maybe I wanted proof. Maybe I wanted her to see it again. Maybe I just wanted the truth to speak louder than my voice. "I found this the day you left," I said, handing it to her, stuffed behind the dresser. "You probably didn't mean to leave it behind." Her hands trembled as she unfolded the paper. I watched her eyes move, the color draining from her face as the words she once wrote, "His touch feels like freedom, not guilt," stared back at her in her own handwriting. The note slipped from her fingers. I didn't pick it up. Celia didn't reach for the note on the floor. She stared at it like it was radioactive, like the words she'd once written in a rush of adrenaline now belonged to someone else. But they didn't. They belonged to the woman who had shattered my life. And now she had nowhere to hide from her own handwriting. "I wasn't supposed to leave that," she said finally, barely audible. "But you did," I replied, "just like you left me." Her lips trembled, and she turned away again, pacing in slow circles like she was trying to escape without moving. "You have no idea what I was going through back then, Dean." "I wasn't okay." I raised an eyebrow. "You weren't okay, so you started sleeping with your boss?" She winced. There it was. No more dodging, no more poetic phrases like reclaiming identity or growing apart. It was betrayal, plain and sharp. She used to be good with words, spinning her choices into justifications, cloaking cruelty in calm. But now she looked like a woman who had built a house of mirrors and finally found the one that showed her reflection clearly. "I was suffocating," she said suddenly, her voice rising. "I felt invisible in our marriage." I almost laughed. "So your solution was to make me disappear?" She looked at me, eyes glassy, throat tight. "I didn't think you'd ever confront me. You were always so passive." And there it was, that tiny little cut disguised as honesty. She meant it as an insult, but it landed as truth. I was passive. I let things slide. I chose quiet over conflict. I believed love meant endurance, even when it hurt. I gave her space, freedom, trust. And she used every inch of it to sneak out of the life we'd built. But something in me had changed. Maybe it was the silence I lived in after she left. Maybe it was the version of myself I had to become, just to survive waking up alone. Either way, I wasn't that same man anymore. "You thought I'd stay broken," I said quietly, stepping toward her. But I didn't. She didn't respond. Instead, she leaned against the wall like her body had given up. "You want revenge. Is that it?" I shook my head. "If I wanted revenge, you'd already be watching your career burn. I came here for one thing, to return the weight you left me with. I'm done carrying it." For the first time, she looked scared. Not because I threatened her, but because I no longer needed her to feel complete. And for a woman like Celia, indifference was more terrifying than rage. She opened her mouth to speak again, but the door creaked open behind us. A voice said, "Celia, are you okay?" We both turned, And standing in the doorway was him. He stood in the doorway like he belonged there. Tall, smooth suit, polished shoes, hair styled like he'd just come from a board meeting, and probably had. He looked at Celia, not me, like I was a shadow in the room, not the earthquake shaking it. "Everything okay?" he asked again, with that condescending calm that men like him carry, the kind that only comes from years of getting away with things. Celia didn't respond. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. Her eyes bounced between us like she was trying to decide which direction would hurt less. But there was no safe exit now. The room had already collapsed. "You must be Grant," I said, standing up slowly, letting the silence press against his confidence. He blinked. The name caught him off guard, like I wasn't supposed to know. That tiny pause before he answered told me everything I needed. "And you are?" "I'm the husband," I replied evenly. "Well, the former one. You can thank her for the promotion." He exhaled through his nose, shifting uncomfortably. "Look, I don't know what you think." "You don't have to say anything," I cut in. "I've read enough." Celia finally spoke. "Dean, please." "No," I said sharply, turning toward her. "Don't try to manage this. You've done enough managing. You managed to lie, to vanish, to make me think I was the problem. And now, here we are, with your boss, your lover, the man you called a mistake in that journal you left behind. Funny how mistakes get invites to rooftop galas." Grant raised a brow. "You came here to embarrass her?" "I came here for closure," I said. "But don't flatter yourselves. Neither of you are that important anymore. You're just the last chapter." Celia looked like she was about to cry again. But this time, I didn't feel bad. I didn't want to save her from the discomfort. She'd spent years dodging this moment, cloaking herself in curated success and corporate applause. But shame finds you, even behind glass towers and rooftop parties. Grant crossed his arms. "You done?" "Almost," I said. "Just one thing." I pulled out the guest badge I used to get in, handed it to him. Funny how easy it was to slip past security. All it took was your assistant's name. Maybe double-check who you trust next time. His jaw tightened. I could see the crack in his smugness forming. I turned to Celia. "You can keep the note." "You earned it." And then, without another word, I walked past them both, into the hallway, through the lobby, and into the night. But I wasn't done just yet. Because the next morning, something unexpected arrived in my inbox. And it wasn't from her. I didn't sleep that night. You'd think walking out of that party would have brought me peace, some sense of justice, closure. But the truth is I felt hollow. Not angry, not relieved, just unfinished. Like I'd shut the door too quietly on something that deserved to be slammed. The sun had barely come up when my phone buzzed on the nightstand. I ignored it at first. I wasn't in the mood for anything. Not news, not spam, not even the weather. But then I saw the subject line. "You deserve to know the truth." No sender name. Just an address I didn't recognize. I stared at it for a long time, thumb hovering over the screen, mind racing through possibilities. It could have been spam, or worse, one of them trying to twist the knife again. Still, I opened it, and everything I thought I knew fractured in half. The message was short, just 3 lines. But it was what was attached that changed everything. "Dean, I've worked with Celia and Grant for 2 years. I overheard enough to realize what really happened. I didn't have the courage to come forward until now. You're not crazy. You were never crazy. Check the audio file, listen to the date, and be careful who you trust." Attached was a voice recording, time-stamped from nearly 4 years ago, almost a full year before she left me. I sat up, heart thudding in my chest like it was trying to climb out. I hesitated, then hit play. It was them. Grant's voice came first, smug and low. "He's clueless. She still cooks dinner and sleeps next to him like nothing's happening." Then Celia's voice, laughing. "That's what makes it exciting. I keep telling you, I'm doing him a favor. He was never really a man to begin with." Silence. Then more laughter. I couldn't breathe. I replayed it twice, then again, my ears burning. The world blurred, my throat tightening. I thought I had already lived through the worst part, the leaving, the lies, the nights spent questioning my own sanity. But this was something else. This was humiliation stitched into cruelty. It was all intentional, calculated. She didn't just fall into an affair, she choreographed it, and the part that gutted me most, she enjoyed it. I sat on the edge of my bed, the early morning light spilling across the floor like a spotlight I didn't want. I should have been angry, I should have screamed, but all I could feel was the chill of betrayal reaching even deeper than before. It was never about love. It was never about mistakes. It was about power. And now, someone inside her company had sent me proof that she never thought would surface. I must have sat there for over an hour with the audio file on loop, each replay scraping at me like sandpaper on exposed skin. My hands shook, not from fear, not from rage, from clarity. The kind of clarity that only arrives when there's no doubt left. Celia hadn't just betrayed me. She had dismantled me piece by piece, privately, publicly, and with pleasure. I kept wondering who sent it. I scrolled up, checked the email address again. It was generic, a burner account. Whoever it was didn't want credit, just the truth delivered. And somehow, that made it even more powerful. Someone inside her world was finally disgusted enough to say, enough. By midday, I was staring at my screen, mouse hovering over the forward button. I could have sent that file to HR, to the company's ethics board. I could have uploaded it anonymously. I could have burned their world down in a flash. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized I didn't want to press the send out of revenge. I wanted her to feel what I felt, slowly, privately, with no way to blame it on anyone but herself. So instead of forwarding the audio, I drafted a short message. No threats, no drama, just one line. Celia, someone on your team sent this to me. You might want to look into who's finally tired of covering for you. And I attached the file. That was it. I sent it, closed the laptop, walked outside. And for the first time in 3 years, I breathed like a man who wasn't carrying her weight anymore. The next 24 hours were silent. No call, no text, nothing. Then, the following morning, at exactly 6:42 a.m., my phone rang. Her number. I stared at it for a full minute before I answered. Not because I was unsure, but because I wanted her to feel the pause. When I finally picked up, she didn't say hello. All I heard was her shaky breath, followed by 5 words. How much do you want? I smiled to myself. So now it was transactional. She thought this was blackmail, that I wanted hush money or some NDA to keep my mouth shut. She still didn't get it. This isn't about money, I said calmly. It never was. But it's interesting that guilt's the first thing you tried to purchase. She went silent, and then she said something I didn't expect. Can we meet? Her voice cracked on the last word. There was panic in it. Not fear of me, fear of exposure. Fear that the version of herself she'd sold to the world was starting to splinter. I waited a moment. Then I said, you choose the place. I'll choose the time. And hung up. I didn't owe her the comfort of control anymore. We met at a small cafe near the river. Neutral ground, quiet, empty enough to avoid eavesdropping, but public enough that she couldn't twist the narrative later. Celia was already there when I arrived. She looked deflated. Not ruined, not broken. Just stripped of the confidence she used to wear like armor. Her eyes flicked up when I pulled out the chair across from her. No hug, no handshake, just silence. She didn't even try to lead the conversation. A first. I think she knew this wasn't hers to direct anymore. I didn't send the file, she said, almost as if she wanted credit for not doing one more dishonest thing. I know, I replied. It doesn't matter who did, just that it exists. She stared down at her coffee, fingers tapping nervously on the cup. What are you going to do with it? I leaned back. Nothing. Her head shot up. Nothing? I don't need to ruin you, Celia. That's not my job. You did all this without me, and you'll have to carry it, with or without my help. For a moment, I saw something in her eyes that almost resembled regret, but I didn't trust it, not anymore. I wasn't there to get an apology. I wasn't there for revenge. I was there to finally let go. I loved you, I said quietly, more than I should have. But I see now, it wasn't love for you. It was leverage, and I'm done being your stepping stone. She didn't fight back. She didn't cry. Maybe she finally realized there was nothing left to salvage. I stood up. No threats, no exposure, just distance, I said. Good luck, Celia. And I walked out of that cafe with no anger, no bitterness, no more questions. For the first time in years, I wasn't dragging her shadow behind me. I had my peace. And sometimes that's the best kind of ending. The kind where you don't win, you just release. Now I live in a different city. I adopted a dog named Milton who snores like a grown man and doesn't care about my past. I started photographing again, not for money, just for me. And sometimes, when I'm alone with the silence, I smile, not because I got even, but because I finally got free. Thank you for watching this story on Reddit Confessions. If you've ever been through something that changed you in ways no one could see, we'd love to hear your experience. Was there a moment you realized you didn't need closure to move on? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Your story might help someone else find their ending too. And don't forget to subscribe for more powerful real-life stories that hit where it hurts and heal where it matters.